All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to support and inspire new trauma therapists just starting out on the trauma-informed journey. I do that with my membership community, Trauma Therapist 2.0, my online courses and workshops, and the Trauma Therapist newsletter. If you're a therapist of any kind and you work with individuals who've been impacted by trauma, I invite you to head on over to my website at thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. All right, let's get started. All right, you ready to do this?
I am.
All right. So here we go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. Guy McPherson here. Very excited to have as my guest today, Denisha Seals. Denisha, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So Denisha is a spoken word artist, award-winning filmmaker, and author who uses the power of her pen to lift the voices of the marginalized and victimized. A survivor of childhood sexual abuse and trauma, she advocates for more awareness and understanding of the emotional toll abuse victims experience, particularly children of color. Her uplifting stories inspire readers to be strong, fearless, and full of hope. Denisha completed her bachelor's in interdisciplinary studies at the University of Nebraska Omaha in 2013. Denisha, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So I don't know you, but looking at your website, talking to you briefly, I can already tell that you are a force of nature. You are on a mission.
Yes. I just kind of wish that the Midwest understood that, particularly where I'm from, Nebraska. One of the worst things you can be is a force to be reckoned with, as someone who goes against the grain and someone who has a bit more, more cultured, I guess, than the norm here. So it's really hard to be all of those things you just gave me compliments of in this state in particular.
So how did you get here? Tell us the story.
Well, how I got here, honestly, I appreciate the bio you read. I am a child, a woman that was a child that suffered through sexual assault of my oldest brother. And he would actually watch as he would prostitute me to neighborhood boys as I would be sexually assaulted. I am the youngest of 4 children. And one of the most traumatic experiences that I would say that I actually went through was being forced to still carry a facade that I love him and I care about him, for the adults around who didn't want to address the situation the way that they should have addressed it. I think that was more traumatic for me to pretend that things were not happening versus the actual trauma, in my opinion.
So at what age were you when this happened?
I was 5 years old when my first memory of being sexually assaulted by a neighborhood boy as my brother watched. And I was also sexually assaulted by my oldest brother as well. And, I wrote a poem about how at 5 years old, I knew every sexual position, unfortunately, right? And I get really graphic in the poem because a lot of people romanticize sexual assault, right? Even historically, America romanticizes sexual assault. We can even go back to Thomas Jefferson, to Sally Hemings. He loved that slave woman. No, he couldn't have. That was his property. That was not love. That was sexual assault, people. So America has a tendency to romanticize what sexual assault is.
Hold on a second. When you say romanticize, say more about that. What do you mean specifically?
When I think about romanticize, for example, no one wants to truly know the details of it, right? You have these shows, you have the media who essentially says things like, okay, this was a young girl, typically white, blonde, blue eyes, right? And this is her life. She came from a good background. And here this monster of a man just took advantage of her. Poor her. Oh no. But then when you have someone that looks like me coming into the police station, true story, they make every excuse as to why um, I shouldn't have been there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when I say romanticize, I think of water under the bridge. Let's massage it. Let's say it was molestation. No, it was rape.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it was just touching. No, it wasn't. You know what I mean? So when
And
I'm
why
trying
do
to see
you
how I can
think
put.
we do that as a culture?
Oh, I think I think why we do that honestly is because we just can't fathom the truth. And the truth is, sexual assault and rape happens more than what I believe people are comfortable with discussing. There are individuals in my community who says what happens in this house stays in this house. And to me all that does is just to add the pain to the individual or individuals who are experiencing that trauma. But a lot of people outside of my community don't understand that the whole idea of what happens in this house stays in this house actually had a lot to do with our community not wanting the system, i.e. white people, right? i.e. child services, i.e. police officers to come into the home to judge the family about what was going on. So it was more like, let's keep everything under the bridge. We
Mm-hmm.
don't want to upset the apple cart. And see what that did for generations down was actually create wires wrapped around the hearts, minds, and spirits of the victims.
Mm. So, walk us through how things unfolded for you. You were 5, you said, when you had this first
I was
memory.
5 actually. Yeah, I was sexually assaulted actually throughout my entire childhood. Um, and you know, I remember after that first incident of my memory of being sexually assaulted, I did tell my mother the way a 5-year-old would tell their mother or an adult. I said my private parts were hurting. And it was just go get a coat or a warm rag in between your legs, you know. But what I learned was my mother had trauma. Every woman on my mom's side of the family, my grandma had trauma, her mother had trauma, her mother's mother had trauma, my aunts had trauma, and of the same kind as me as well. So I don't know if she was just so I would say her energy and her mind and her spirit was so disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't recognize that the little girl that she created that was repeating something to her was something that she felt too. So as
Mm-hmm.
time went on, she actually walked in on one of the sexual assaults that my brother committed. And it was not with me, it was with my sibling. And she clearly was upset. She did not do anything immediately. So he was still left in the house with us. She tried to call my biological father. He was as useless as a rotted doorknob, and who created a lot of her trauma of domestic violence, right?
Mm.
And, I spoke with him years later, and he said that he felt because my mother left him, when he found out about all the rapes that were happening, he said, "You deal with it because you left me." Um, so useless, right? Um, but I'm chuckling now because he was a child when he had children. He was 14 when my oldest brother became into existence. My mother was 15 going on 16. So they were children having children. There was no way that children having children could raise children. And nothing really happened immediately until he sexually assaulted a younger male that was outside of the family. And then that's when um, my mother did what I felt that she should have did the first time, was call the police on him instead of
Mm-hmm.
trying to send him away to family members. And he was 13 and he was in jail, juvenile uh, for the time he was 18. He's currently serving a life sentence right
Oh
now,
my
though,
gosh.
for murder.
This is
So
your biological dad.
no, 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 no.
Okay.
My brother
Your
sexually
okay,
assaulted
your
me. My
brother did.
dad was the one who was just useless with
Okay.
when my mom called him and said, "This is what's going on.
Right.
I need your help." He was just useless in the situation.
Okay.
If I'm making myself clear.
So your brother is
So,
currently serving a life sentence.
in prison for murder,
Wow. Wow.
absolutely,
Wow.
yes. And
All
he's
right.
all
So
yes.
so you get to a point through at what point do you say to yourself, or did you say to yourself, I need some help?
Honestly, I did. I remember telling my kindergarten teacher. I remember telling my second grade teacher, my third grade teacher, my fourth grade teacher, my fifth grade
Oh
teacher.
my
And
God.
then when, I actually told these teachers, but they were not equipped to
Right.
deal with a little brown girl coming to them saying, my private parts are hurting, or my mom wasn't home for 3 days, or hey, there's no food in the house, can I get seconds when it's for the lunch program or the breakfast program, or can I take some food home? um, Instead, what a teacher did was hold me back. I was held back, actually.
Mm-hmm.
She said that I wasn't smart enough to do the work. But see, at my age, I thought if I do the homework, that means I have to go back home. So I'm not going to do any of the homework that we have to do in class. And I'm definitely not going to do anything we're going to have to take home and complete and bring back to school. So she
Mm-hmm.
made fun of me a lot in front of the class. And she even told the class, and this was in Omaha public schools, she
Mm-hmm.
told the class that I was going to be the one held back. And I remember the class laughing at me. And she even threatened to have my mom put me on Ritalin because I moved around in the desk so much. But what she didn't know was that my wound was hurting. Okay. I was being violated by teenagers, multiple teenagers being violated, excuse me, by grown men, even. Sorry, I need some water. Allergy season. Sorry. And so when she stated that I wasn't competent to do the work, I look back at it and it's laughable because I actually memorized every word in the dictionary by the time I was 5 years old. And I remember having a wider vocabulary than my instructors, which also frustrated them. I
Mm-hmm.
remember qualifying for gifted programs, but my mother was so disconnected, she wouldn't sign the paper. I even remember trying to forge my mom's signature at one point to be a part of some of the gifted programs. Thank God they couldn't tell the difference because we're both left-handed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we both have that left-handed writing. And so the teachers were not equipped to deal with me based off of their deficit thinking that society has created for them to believe about who I was,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Or what I was supposed to be. So what they saw was a angry little brown woman, little brown girl, right? Who was very naturally outspoken, who so therefore that meant I was disrespectful and aggressive, right? Um, she never asked me anything about myself personally. This is so she was just a reflection of how the school system is not equipped to
Right.
deal with marginalized youth culturally, um, who are dealing with trauma.
So let's jump to kind of where you are now. And
Yeah.
talk about, I mean, was there a point at which you
hmm
saw a therapist?
I saw therapists from the time that I was 8 years old when I was in foster care and group homes when the state came and took my sister and I away.
Oh boy.
I've been in therapy since I was 8 years old, and no therapist has ever been able to help me. And I have been more disappointed. I even had a white female therapist scream at me and told me that I was too smart for my own good and that she had to remember that I was one of the smart ones out of my community.
Why do you think
Yes,
people, why do you think there, a lot, obviously a lot of therapists listen to this.
the messianic complex. It's so much easier to have a messianic complex of, I'm here to fix you. You
Right.
don't know what's best for you. And how a lot of therapists, psychiatrists, even doctors to a degree, how they are trained. You are there for them to heal and help
Right.
you. So lo and behold, that you actually are well aware of some of the things that are going on up here and right here and spiritually, and you're reaching out to them saying, hey, I know what you're doing, but this is how I also need help. That
Hmm.
challenges the ego, that challenges the person's 20 years of experience. And it's like, how dare you?
Right.
So I tell therapists in a lot of my speaking engagements, if you do not attack that deficit thinking that has been programmed within all of us, then you are a part of the problem. If I believe that I can get my healing through God, if I believe I can get my healing in the church or through scripture, and I'm coming to you and we're talking about healing, and you cut me off or you disrespect my beliefs, then you are a part of the problem and you're adding to my pain. If you know nothing about historical trauma of what people that look like me been through, then you truly don't know why I am sitting across from you. Therefore,
Hmm.
you cannot help me, and you will not be able to help me. But I believe that a lot of the complex that counselors have is messianic, the
Hmm.
God complex. And when that is challenged, it goes wrong. And they need someone to blame, and unfortunately, they blame the patient.
Did you ever encounter someone, whether it was a therapist or not, who you felt heard you, who saw you, and in turn,
No,
no, no
no,
one.
I can just go ahead and answer that question. Every single person that I have ever come across in my life that I've reached out to when I was being sexually assaulted from the time I was 5 to 8, and then again at 14, um, no one did what they were supposed to do. No adult. It
Mm,
was, you are a strong young Black woman. You'll be fine. You're too smart to let this bother you. Oh, it happened to me, I got over it. Or you should focus more on just not becoming a statistic. Try your hardest to graduate from high school, because you're probably not going to go to college. I got a full ride scholarship to college, okay?
mm,
And I can speak another language and I studied abroad. So, again, like I said, the things that these adults around me, these mandatory reporters, by the way, who actually encouraged some of my activities that were not okay, did not report the abuse. And in fact, I did not have a hero. Like I tell people, one of the problems with America, again, is the whole romanticization theory. Everyone wants that story where the Antoine Fisher story, for example, he was sexually assaulted as a child. He's been through everything, right? But he found love at the end of his story, right? That's not how
mhm,
most stories go. Most stories go where she ends up on drugs. He ends up in prison. She ends up with so much psychological trauma, she is not even able to function daily. And then the
mhm.
system makes it even harder for her to cope or do advocacy or allyship for herself, right? And so, no, I can just bluntly answer that question. I never had anyone who knew what was happening stopped it. No family member,
Well, I didn't
no.
necessarily mean that. What I meant was there anyone that you encountered who heard you, who could see you, who could understand you? You said all the therapists you saw didn't really help.
No, I
Was there
can't say.
anyone?
I can't.
No. Okay.
No, absolutely not. I mean, my spouse is just a little different, and even then, sometimes he just looks at me and just, uh, but I'm a whole lot of woman. I could say that. But
Well,
in
we
terms
we
of,
know that, and in the
but
best
in terms,
way.
yes, yes, absolutely. Oh no, 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 no offense taken. But yeah, no, I can't say that anyone truly has ever heard me. Everything in my life has been a fight. Even with my publishing company, to this, everything has been a fight. I think my story is more authentic than what the stories people are comfortable hearing or learning of.
How did you get to the point? Okay, let me just remind everyone that I'm speaking with Denisha Michelle Seals. Her website is Water to Spirit. That's WATER, the number two, spirit.com, water2spirit.com. Denisha, walk us through how you got to this point
All right.
where hang on,
Absolutely.
where you
Yeah.
said, you know what, I need to channel this and start. I mean, obviously you're an advocate, you're helping people. And from according to your bio, younger kids. How did that unfold where you said, this is what I want to do?
Honestly, I've always been an advocate for other people, even when I was going through my own trauma. So there was never a light that came on that said, this is what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
or this is what you have to do. But I will say, when I was diagnosed with complex post traumatic stress disorder, my senior year of college, I had a wake up call. You learn to be a great actress. You learn to be a great actor when you are going through trauma behind closed doors, but up front, you have to put on a happy face.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what my breaking point was, um, I was already barely above water, and I made myself so busy to where I didn't have to think about the pain and trauma that I had went through as a child and as a young adult. So what I did instead was taking 16 credit hours over the summer, studying abroad twice when less than 2% college students even do that. So I became somewhat of an overachiever. In my senior year, I only had one class to do. And it left a lot of room to think, and it left a lot
Mm.
of room to feel, and it left a lot of room to have the walls talk. Not literally, it's just an empty room, and you begin to reflect on things or situations that you forgot about or you don't want to believe really happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was at my breaking point. I say to people, I was on my knees, and uh, God and my ancestors, I'm Afro Indigenous. God and my ancestors, said, listen, you can keep acting or you can start your healing process. And what God and my ancestors told me to do was use all the gifts and talents that He gave me to assist with the healing of other children who've been through experiences that I've been through. And within that, He will take care of my healing. It has been 7 years, and just last month, I am official, no, 2 months, I have been off of all psych medication. And I have
Wow.
never been happier, never felt so great. Uh, I'm not saying that psych meds are bad. I'm just saying they serve their
Sure. Of
purpose in my
course.
life,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Hear that.
And
Yeah. Congratulations on that. It's
thank
awesome.
you. It was just horrible that it took me until I was 23 being in therapy my from the time I was 8. It took until I was 23, my senior year of college, for a therapist to tell me, "Honey, you have PTSD. You ever heard of that?" So I that's why I say that from that point behind her, those therapists failed me.
Mm-hmm. So right now, with Water to Spirit, what are you doing? What's your goal? What's your purpose?
Oh gosh, yes. So when you think of water to spirit is actually a metaphor, and when you think of water, you're thinking of reviving, releasing, and replenishing. And what a lot of people don't understand is the word "sigh" actually means spirit. That part of the word "sigh" means spirit. People think it's the mind, but "sigh" is really, in my culture, "sigh" means the spirit. So water to spirit. So reviving, releasing. So you revive those wounds that you dug and buried, right? And then you release them, and then you replenish the spirit. It's a painful process, but damn it, it is worth it. And so, a lot of the work in which I've done, in which I am continuously doing, I am the first Afro Indigenous author to be signed a publishing contract with Boys Town press here in Nebraska. And the children's book is called Butterflies in Me. And Butterflies in Me, the butterfly is a metaphor for the child's mental health. And when you think of a butterfly, you think of beauty, you think of gentle, you think of animation based off of the color pattern. But people truly don't recognize how strong a butterfly is. It can fly the against gravity. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
flying for, we never think about how strong the wings of a butterfly is. But also, if you tug on the butterfly's wings, it will never be able to fly again. So it's strong and fragile, and that's how I want people to understand the youth's mental health. So at the end of each story is you're special, strong, and you did nothing wrong. And each character, all have their unique experiences. They come from different socio-economical backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, and even spiritual backgrounds. And each character has a little bit of me in them as well too.
What do you say? First of all, I want to just move back a little bit. What do you say? What do you want to say to the therapists out there who are listening to this?
Listen, listen, listen. Um, Again, Plato uh, speaks of these boxes that we create around ourselves and around the world, around other people, to be more comfortable about walking in the world. We all do it, no matter gender, culture, everyone, we all do it. So when you actively dismantle those boxes, what you did then do is humanize the person that is across from you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you humanize the person that is across from you, then you recognize they're not so different from you. Then you also recognize that you can also learn a lot from them too, just like they can learn a lot from you. And that to me is true human relationship. And that's what I believe we lack. So I would say to therapists, humanize the human. I would say to all people, humanize the human. So,
In terms of, for therapists, they need to listen. What
absolutely.
about people or kids listening to this who, first of all, as we kind of wind down here, I want to thank you for sharing your story because you're right. We as a culture do romanticize this, and what you went through, I can't imagine it. I mean, it's freaking horrific.
Hmm.
And I really admire you coming on here and sharing this. What
Oh,
do
thank you.
you're welcome. What do you feel kids need to hear who maybe have gone through this or are
You're
going through
special.
this?
Yeah, you're special, strong, and you did nothing wrong. And that affirmation, that mantra alone, I believe will give youth the confidence that they need to develop that understanding. The author visits that I've done, just me starting the author visit by saying that, um, kids break down.
Mm,
Children break down and cry. No one's ever told them that they were special. No one's ever told them that they were strong. No one's ever told them that they were not to blame for being homeless, or that they were not responsible for the decisions that the adults around them made. So just that mantra alone, I believe, opens up the door for discussion.
right, right. I appreciate that. Denisha, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, my business number is 402-431-2206. I am available for author visits, speaking engagements, podcast interviews, and um, I really would love for my children's book to get into schools more. Um, One of my challenges is a lot of people think because there's multicultural characters, that means the book is not for a certain group. But
Mm-hmm.
that question is never asked when it's the other way around. So
Right.
I want to say the book is for all youth.
Right.
And I think that's one of the challenges of being a storyteller of color. You have to actually explain that, which
Right.
is can be tiresome, a bit cumbersome too. But I would love to get my books into the hands of youth where, the book isn't talking about sexual assault. It's just youth who may be dealing with ADHD and not recognize it, or a youth who's being bullied, or whatever the case may be. And they're understanding who they are throughout that situation. I would love to get the book out more. Absolutely.
Well, hopefully we can do it in a little way with this. I'll certainly have this linked up, the book's linked up at the show
Thank
notes
you.
page of the traumatherapistpodcast.com. Denisha, I knew when I first saw you that you are powerful. And this is a message that I'm really looking forward to getting out on this podcast. I'd love to have you back at
I would love to be
a
back.
different time, and we can continue talking because I really value your voice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll be in touch.
Yes, you too.
Thank you so much for listening and supporting this podcast. And if you'd like to join the hundreds of other therapists who are each month keeping up to date and informed and inspired about what's going on in the world of trauma, I'd love to invite you to head on over to the Trauma Therapist newsletter. That's the traumatherapistnewsletter.com.